Now I'm going to try and make this a somewhat short video, at least by my standards, because the newest Thrawn novel from Timothy Zahn called Descendancy just showed up at my front door, and yeah, I'd like to give it a read and maybe do a review in the coming days. But also this will likely be a short video because this is one of those times where I'm mainly going to throw a question out there about the future of Star Wars, and have you all answer it and then maybe do a follow-up video that, for what it's worth, I'll address to Lucasfilm and or Disney, where I discuss what you all had to say. Not that I actually think they'll watch it and pay it any attention. Anyway, kind of going along with this topic and worth mentioning and showing, this morning we got our first glimpse at what Yoda will look like in the upcoming High Republic era, which, if you don't know, is a series of books and comics, and just books and comics, nothing else, that will be set in the Star Wars galaxy some 200 years before the events of the prequels, and will be about, to sum it up very quickly, the Republic expanding into the Outer Rim with the Jedi sort of acting like Texas Rangers on the frontier, trying to bring law to the lawless, which is their description, not mine. And no matter what you think about the premise or the format, so far, and sadly, this has been the most ambitious original project, not to mention biggest departure from the norm, that Lucasfilm has done thus far with Star Wars since Disney became their overseers. Most everything else, including unfortunately the sequel trilogy, really hasn't felt all that fresh, new, or original. I mean, the sequels were basically a retelling of the original trilogy, right down to the way they ended with Palpatine being defeated and a lone Jedi ready to rebuild the Order. In fact, so far pretty much everything that has been done or covered in the new canon has been something that was already covered by the old expanded universe. Everything's been a retread, with the High Republic era now being the first thing really never touched on by the EU. And so thus far, to many people, it's left the new canon feeling like a less interesting rewrite or version of the EU. And as I've said before, I do understand the dilemma Lucasfilm faced, or the double-edged sword scenario decades of expanded universe content presented them with when Disney took over and wanted them to not only do a sequel trilogy, but to greatly expand what was being done with the franchise overall. Which leads to the tricky question for them of, do you beholden yourself to all this content or stories and lore that you already have, again, decades worth, and most of which more casual fans, or certainly average viewers, never kept up with and probably know little or nothing about. And let's be honest here, yes, casual fans or average viewers do greatly outnumber the more hardcore or diehard fans, but they're also the ones who spend the most money on Star Wars, and sometimes they spend quite a bit of money on it. I know this firsthand. And so if you discard the EU and do something new, you risk angering arguably your most loyal and dedicated customers, the ones who did keep up with most, if not all, of the books and comics during the years when there were no movies or other content, and again, the ones who tend to spend way more money on Star Wars than anyone else does. And of course, here we know what they chose to do. They chose to throw out the old EU in favor of a brand new canon, and the true irony or funny thing here is, a good chunk of the new canon, of course, comes in the form of comics and books, which again, not everyone reads. Heck, most fans don't read them. As I said, it tends to be the more diehard fans that buy all of or most of the books and comics, and read all that stuff and have been doing that for many, many years in some cases, which then means they are, for the most part, the very same people you angered when you discarded the EU, and now you're trying to sell new canon books to them. And I think it's no coincidence then that probably the most popular books so far in the new canon are the Thrawn books, a character who of course originated in the EU. Anyway, here, though I'm trying to stay open-minded and positive about the High Republic era, it could certainly end up being great, we'll have to see. I can't say I'm overly excited for it. Sure, it'll be cool to see Yoda in his slightly younger days. He'll be around 700 instead of 900. But this is a time period that I've never been all that interested in having fully explored, because I don't know how much can really happen in it, keeping in mind the Sith remain hidden the whole time, and that I'd imagine it's a time of relative peace for the galaxy. At least that's always the impression I've got. Though again, certainly there's a chance they'll change how I feel about this time, and I may love whatever they end up doing with these stories. And though I know this era and these books and comics are only part of Lucasfilm's plans for the future of Star Wars, they keep talking about what direction the movies should take, but still don't seem to have a solid game plan in place, what I think they need to do, especially with the films, is one of four things. The first option would probably be their best or wisest, I feel, and that's to go back to the old Republic era and make some of your EU fans truly happy again. And when I say back to it, I'm saying keep essentially everything already established about it intact and build from there. I mean, we're talking about a roughly 25,000 year time frame or window to work in, and where there's already so much fantastic lore laid out to play with, or around, or to build upon. Simply put, most of the groundwork is laid, and it's now up to them to find some quality writers or filmmakers to use what's already there. Their second option would be to move far into the future, hundreds if not thousands of years beyond the time of the Skywalker saga, and create something truly new, or something that feels almost completely different from everything else we've ever seen before, yet still manages to capture that Star Wars essence or magic. Now, I think the biggest risk here is making it too different to the point where it just doesn't have that aforementioned essence and feels off. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. Another problem is, what exactly do you do with the overall story? I mean, I feel you obviously have to still have the Jedi around. If you don't, you make the Skywalker saga feel less meaningful or important. But do you bring back the Sith again? Do they rise in a somewhat new yet vaguely familiar form? Does some other type of evil, very much unlike the Sith but still using the dark side, come about, and are they the new enemies? And then, is this just about eliminating the Sith or this new enemy and then finding balance again? The third option then is to stay more or less in the same time period as the Skywalker saga, but explore completely different parts of the galaxy. And of course the newer Thrawn novels have already been doing something like this. They've been exploring the Chiss ascendancy, as well as bringing in new threats like the Grisk, and implying there are other dangers out there in the unknown regions of the galaxy as well. So could or should Star Wars just move beyond the current borders, if you will, and maybe show us that there are completely different types of Force users out there, both good and evil, or beings who have completely different takes on the Force altogether, who use it in new and unique ways? Though maybe the biggest problem with this idea is that others out there using the Force in a significant way during this time period, during the Skywalker saga, would be upsetting the balance across the whole galaxy, or across the Force itself, which means they should in a way affect what's going on in the Skywalker saga. But then again, it also doesn't make sense that there wouldn't be plenty of Force users out there in the unknown regions, assuming who becomes Force sensitive is a completely random thing. And so I guess there could be something like, or maybe unlike, the Jedi out there in the unknown parts of the galaxy, and also something like the Sith. Or maybe no sort of factions at all exist, and all Force users are independent entities that just do their own thing. The fourth and final option would then be to just keep telling stories in and around the Skywalker saga and in the same part of the galaxy, more or less. And though they have said they want to expand Star Wars, explore new times and places, with the success of The Mandalorian and Season 7 of the Clone Wars, this might be a very tempting option to just keep milking this time period for all it's worth. And no matter what Lucasfilm decides to do next, no matter what direction they take the franchise in, I'm sure they will keep telling stories in this time period, be that through books, shows, games, or whatever else it might be. And I say this as someone who does enjoy the Skywalker saga era and doesn't want to see them abandon it altogether, but I am eager to see something truly different out of Star Wars, for them to do something really outside of the box, and further outside of it than just the High Republic era, which will bank on a character like Yoda to sell it. And so this is where I'll finally pose my question to you all, and so much for this being a short video, which is, what do you think Lucasfilm should do next with Star Wars? Where should they go? And yeah, if you're someone who honestly thinks they should just let it end and fade away and die, you can certainly argue for that. But I think we all know they're not going to do that. They're going to try and keep trying with this franchise until there's not a cent to be made off of it. So again, what do you think they should do? What would either interest you personally the most, or what do you think their best bet is overall? And you obviously don't have to choose from any of my four options, which is why I'm not making this a poll. I'd love to hear your own original ideas and thoughts, or to use or build on the ones I presented. And then I'll make a follow-up video going over some of your ideas, and again, address it to Lucasfilm and Disney, though no, I'm not harboring any delusions of grandeur that they'll watch the video and take heed of any of the suggestions, but you never know, I guess. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments and tell me what the future of Star Wars should look like, or where it should go. And in the coming days, I'll make that video going over some of your ideas and suggestions. So do leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.